In this lesson, we'll begin our project by importing our base geometry and begin shaping it. Okay, so the base geometry that we want to work from, we're going to start with our character, which is going to be this sort of little imp character. Kind of the idea is he kind of steals the change from the couch cushions, and so we want this little character to be a good example for us to use as far as sculpting and doing a little bit of painting. We'll have a little bit of fun with it. So the first thing we need to do is get some base geometry in here. And this base geometry can be built, you can build it in something like Maya. You can see I've just got a piece of base geometry here with the arms and legs and just some really rough feet and a really rough blocky head, just kind of building out the topology for it. This will exist as in your project files as both in a .ma file if you're using Maya, or you can tweak that if you want to. Also an OBJ file, we can import those. Import the OBJ file directly into Mudbox, or if you're using Maya, you can go to File, Send to Mudbox, and we can send it over to Mudbox as a new scene. Okay, but you don't have to use Maya. You can use the base OBJ and import it that way. So to send it from Maya, we would just go ahead and select our geometry. We would say Send to Mudbox as new scene, and then over in Mudbox, the UVs are not complete, and that's fine. So we'll say Keep Mesh. And then you can see that geometry is brought in here. In addition, we could, as I said, go to File. If you're not working with Maya, we can go ahead and import. And then in the Scenes folder, I'm just going to leave this OBJ, and you can open it up that way. We'll get the same message. And there we've got our model. Okay. Now, if you do send it over from Maya, a lot of times you'll get another camera that is going to come in with that. And so we'll just look through our base Mudbox camera, and then we can go ahead and delete that additional camera. Okay, so once you've got your mesh brought into Mudbox, if we want to change the material preset, we can change that by clicking on these material preset buttons down here, or we can edit the base material itself. Let's go ahead and turn on wireframe by right-clicking in the viewport. Let's use grab now, and the idea now is that we've got the topology built out in our other application, but now we want to actually add a little bit of shape to this. So mainly the head, the hands, and the feet. And we want to do this symmetrically. Now our end result isn't going to be symmetrical because it's going to be posed up, but until we get to that point, let's work symmetrically so that we can be more efficient. So whatever we sculpt on one side, we'll be able to sculpt on the other side at the same time. So turning on mirroring. Okay, it was off. Now we'll turn it on in the X. And now let's just start to sculpt this using grab. And so I'm just going to shape this head. If you want to hold down Shift, we can kind of smooth down the corners of the head very quickly. We can kind of bring the top up, and you can maybe get a little bit of a larger brush size at this point, and just add a little bit more of a shape, it's got almost like an ET type shaped head, and we want to round it off a little bit more, especially towards the back. I do want him to have this sort of prominent kind of oblong shaped head, but I don't want it to be really squared off like that. So right now I'm just kind of smoothing and using grab to shape this. He's got a really flat face on the front right now, and so I can kind of pull this back and pull the front out a little bit to kind of give him a little bit more shape. We can also kind of smooth in the sides here. I want him to have kind of a prominent jaw, but the back of his head we can make a little bit narrower. And so I'll just spend a little bit of time shaping this with grab. And again, we can kind of smooth this out. That'll help kind of create that shape. You can pull the front of it out a little bit until we get kind of the right look that we want. Now I'm going to be creating a particular look for this character. If you want to do things a little bit differently, that is perfectly all right. We're just using this as an example to look at the tools here in Mudbox, so feel free to experiment a little bit with how things look as far as the sculpted detail that we create or the look of this character. As long as you get the point of the tool that we're using, feel free to experiment. We'd love to see the work that you guys do, and post that on our forums. We'd love to see that. All right, so just kind of block this out a little bit more. And any of these other areas, we can start to block these out too. So for instance, down here on the feet, you can see that they're really, really blocky. And so we can come in and start to maybe smooth out the toes a little bit. Come in here on the side of the feet. and start to shape that a little. And I can kind of smooth that down a little bit. We haven't subdivided at all yet. We're just taking the geometry as it is and just doing kind of what we can. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the flat feet because we're going to pose it, and so I want to have enough room between those. So I'm not going to worry about having them flush with the grid plane, because when we pose, that's when we'll do that. We can come in here on the hands as well and kind of smooth that out, or we can add a little bit of shape to kind of the fingers here. Again, we can't really do a whole lot at this point because of the low resolution, but we can add a little bit of shape to it. And shaping it here instead of in our 3D application, you know, we could have done it there, but this is a little bit more intuitive and it gives us a chance to look at some of these different brushes. Now I want the jaw to be a little bit more prominent, and so I'm going to start to define that by coming in here and kind of pulling out the corners of this jaw. Can't really define it too well, but I just want to start with that. So as we start to subdivide, we'll make sure that we keep that clear. We want to have this sort of underbite, and so we can start to pull out that jaw a little bit more. Okay, now we can start to subdivide. So I can hit Shift D and we can begin to block in other shapes. So I can maybe start to pull in the eye sockets a little bit. I want them to have these kind of really large eyes that are kind of offset. I can pull out this jaw a little bit more, down and out. Again, not getting too much detail, but just kind of doing what we can at this particular level. Kind of defining that and starting to figure out where that is, where the landmarks are for that. You can come in here maybe and start to build out some ears. He's got these little ears that come out. We can start to pull those out. All right, and then we can kind of tweak the fingers as well. You get kind of a smaller brush size, and we're still using grab, but we're just kind of using it to pull out these overall features and not really using it in any sort of fine way. Can maybe add a little bit of mass to the hands here. And again, symmetry is still on, so anything I do is being mirrored over to the other side, so I don't have to go to each toe or each finger to work with that. And come in here and kind of smooth out the back of the heel. And we don't really need to necessarily see the wireframe at this point, so we can kind of take that off. And let's subdivide one more time. And then we can start to go up to sculpt. And I know even this is maybe a little bit too blocky, but we can start to block in kind of shape. So we can maybe block in the brow shape up here and kind of smooth it back in, but kind of getting a little bit more of an idea of where the eyes are going to go. Kind of getting our little sort of nose area coming down here. Can start to really block in this jaw. So just kind of stroking across here to add it. We can also start to use the wax tool that I like. So if we subdivide this a couple more times, we can get wax, and we can start to style the brush size up a little, or the strength up a little bit. We can start to add material to this. So we can come in here and start to add material for the brows and smooth it out. We're still working very low res, fairly low res considering what it could be. But we can come in here and start to define areas like the jaw once again. Okay, and make a kind of a rim around here where it's going to connect in, and we can kind of smooth that back in. Start to work on the area under the neck, kind of working that into the neck area. Coming in here, we can also kind of cut out areas for like the ears. Start to define that area a little bit more. Again, smoothing it back out as we go. If we want the top to be maybe a little bit bumpier, come in here and add some detail up at the top. And then any time that we see something that we need to change the proportions of, we can always go back and use grab. If we use it a small brush size at a high resolution, we can get some bumps, but if we raise our brush size, we can avoid many of those bumps. Or we can take the resolution down, go down to a lower level, and work on it that way. Okay, so start to, I really want to bring this this jaw up a little bit more, so I'll add a little bit of that raised detail up here and starting to define the opening of where the mouth is. It's becoming a little bit more obvious as we build that out. Kind of get that jawbone jutting out a little bit more. Kind of define that bottom chin or lips. Can also give him a little bit more of a chin. So more of a kind of a bump there that kind of comes into that jaw. All right. So now that we've got kind of the overall, some of the overall features kind of blocked in, you can come in here and block in the body a little bit more. You can see we're missing some volume down here on the hips. So we could come in here and kind of make it a little bit of a hip bone. Have to get a bit of that form back. Add a little bit of mass back here, back to the bottom here, to kind of fill that out a little bit more. Get the muscles coming in. So you can just spend a little bit of time going in and tweaking your model. And you just want to add kind of mass in those areas that don't have a lot of mass from the smoothing. It could have lost some, and so we can come in here and start to build up kind of a little rib cage. It doesn't have to have a human proportion of human anatomy, but we can kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. Coming in here and use grab and just create a little bit of an indication of that bony structure in there. And we can kind of pull out the back a little bit more. Okay, so once we've got some of the blocking done, let's go ahead in the next lesson and start to add a little bit more detail to the head. So go ahead and do that next.